I find it inexplicable in light of these very public allegations that the president hasn't come before the country and assured the American people that he will get to the bottom of whether Russians are putting a bounty on the heads of American troops, and that he will do everything in his power to make sure that we protect American troops.
Joining us now is Congressman Adam Schiff, who is the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Mr. Chairman, thanks for making time to be here tonight. Thanks for being here.
You bet.
So let me ask you about a couple of pieces of breaking news that we've been handling over the course of the past hour. The first is something just posted by the New York Times in which they are naming essentially the bagman, the middleman who was, according to U.S. intelligence, responsible for making these payments to fighters who killed American soldiers, paying them Russian money. They also, in the Times tonight, are reporting the price tag, that it was up to $100,000 per corpse that Russia was willing to pay for dead American soldiers. Let me just ask if this comports with your understanding of this story and your reaction to this.
I can't comment on the classified information, but I can say this. This report contains extraordinary detail. They mention, of course, numerous people they interviewed as sources for the story. And what I found so striking about this situation is Americans reading this, their reaction is to be horrified by what Russia is doing. And if the public reporting is accurate, not just in this story but elsewhere, these bounties are being offered by the same Russian GRU unit that was involved in interfering in our election, that was involved in poisoning people in Britain and elsewhere. When that happened to the British, they demanded sanctions. They were outraged. And what I find so inexplicable here is Americans reading this are outraged about what Russia may be doing. The one person who isn't outraged is Donald Trump, and his reaction is, this is a hoax. And the only people he's angry at are not the Russians who may be paying these bounties, but he's mad that it's being reported. And that, to me, is inexplicable. He's inviting Russia to rejoin the G7 group of nations. He's inviting Putin to Washington, while there is this credible allegation of Russians putting a bounty on American heads. That, to me, is just inexplicable.
Mr. Chairman, it's been reported today that the group of 8, including yourself, congressional leaders, is due to be briefed on this. That was going to be today, and as we understand it, it was moved to tomorrow. And it's been reported that among the briefers will be the CIA director, Gina Haspel, and also the NSA director. That seems, if that's accurate, that seems sort of heartening, because it would imply that you at least and your colleagues are going to be briefed by people who should know what they're talking about and not just know the White House spin on this. What are your expectations for that briefing? What should we know about it?
Well, I normally can't comment on a Gang of 8 meeting, even the existence of one, but the White House at their press conference today announced they were doing it. Look, this will be an opportunity for us to get into some granular detail about what intelligence we possess and get to the bottom of these public reports of some dissent within the intelligence community. Finally, we're going to have a chance to talk to the agency heads themselves rather than, the White House personnel to give us the White House spin. But I have to say there are a lot of inconsistencies with what the White House is saying. If the public reports are true, and again, I caveat, if they're true, and this material was included in the president's daily brief, that's considered the gold standard. You don't put things in the president's daily brief that are speculative or unsupported or sketchy. That's the gold standard. As an Intel analyst, if your work product makes it into the president's daily brief, that's the most important accolade you can get. So it doesn't square for me, if those reports are accurate, how they can somehow say, well, it wasn't credible and therefore they didn't tell the president about it. So something doesn't add up. But the biggest question mark of all that doesn't add up is this president's undying affinity for Putin and Russia. He is once again, just as he did in Helsinki, declaring this to be a hoax and taking Russia's side. And that is dangerous for us.
Do you think it's possible that Congress could choose to respond to this by levying sanctions against Russia or by taking some other action that's within Congress's power, at least putting something on the president's desk that he has to decide about whether or not he would finally take a stand on behalf of U.S. troops?
Yes, and this is why I think the Speaker is exactly right to demand that not just the Gang of Eight, not just the intelligence committees, but also the full House be briefed on this, because if these allegations prove out and are substantiated, it would require the whole House to act, the whole Congress to act, especially if the president refuses to. Now, we have done that before. We have passed sanctions on Russia over the objection of the White House, and they've been compelled to enact them. And this may be another case where that is necessary. It's another reason, I think, why the Speaker's call to have everyone informed is the right one.
Chairman Adam Schiff of the Intelligence Committee, sir, I really appreciate you being here tonight. Keep us apprised on this as best you can. I know a lot of this is about classified stuff, but keep us honest in telling this story. It's one of the most disturbing things I've ever covered in my entire career.
Thanks for having me on.